All right, buckle up, because today's deep dive is juicy.
What's fascinating about this rivalry is how it transcends the sport itself.
Okay, eternal executioners.
Believe it or not, you have to rewind all the way back to 1981 to find the last time Belgium won a competitive match against France.
Ouch, 1981.
You're absolutely right, and for this rivalry, many point to a pivotal moment in the 2018 World Cup.
Vaguely, but I need a refresher.
Well, imagine this. It's the semifinal, the atmosphere is electric, tensions are high.
It's amazing how a single goal can become etched in a nation's sporting memory, almost taking on a life of its own.
You're not kidding.
Wow, talk about adding insult to injury.
While France undoubtedly has a stacked team, this goes beyond raw talent.
You mentioned tactical flexibility. Did something happen in this latest match that really highlights that?
Absolutely. It was a tense match, with Belgium playing some inspired football, especially early on.
Wait, they were a man down and still won?
Precisely. Even Belgian fans are admitting that the French team's composure and tactical discipline under pressure were remarkable.
It's almost like this French team thrives on proving its mettle, especially when facing their longtime rivals.
It's definitely a national conversation.
That's a tough pill to swallow. Watching your team, especially one that's achieved so much on the international stage, potentially past its prime.
Exactly.
So beyond the disappointment of the loss itself, there are deeper anxieties, bubbling up anxieties about national pride, about their place in the football hierarchy.
You hit the nail on the head.
It's like this rivalry has taken on a life of its own, transcending the boundaries of the sport and tapping into something deeper within both nations.
It's a cultural phenomenon.
It's about bragging rights that extend far beyond the football pitch.
Exactly. And those narratives have a way of shaping how we, as fans, experience these matches.
Speaking of narratives, you mentioned the French media framing their team as the eternal executioners.
Well, like any good rivalry, there's an element of playful banter, a bit of tongue-in-cheek ribbing.
And has that translated into a sense of overconfidence? Perhaps even complacency within the French camp?
That's the million-dollar question.
Oh, give me an example.
Well, even in this most recent victory against Belgium, they faced their share of criticism, especially regarding their first-half performance.
So even in victory, there's room for introspection, for improvement.
Always. Especially in the world of football, where expectations are sky high, particularly for a team like France.
Right. They are the reigning World Cup champions, after all.
Exactly. They're expected to win, and win with a certain flair.
And how has the French media reacted to this latest win, given the less than stellar first half?
There's definitely a sense of relief that they secured the victory, but there's also this recognition that the performance wasn't perfect.
It's interesting how, even with their recent string of successes, both the French team and their manager are still under the microscope.
Absolutely.
It's that hunger, that constant drive for improvement, that separates the good teams from the truly great ones.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, we've talked a lot about the teams as a whole, but rivalries often hinge on individual battles, on key players who drive the narrative on the pitch.
On the French side, all eyes are on Randal Kolo Muani right now.
Ah, yes.
You're right, he's actually been struggling a bit at Paris Saint-Germain.
It's almost like this rivalry brings out the best in him.
It certainly seems that way.
So we've got history, we've got drama, we've got star players stepping up. It sounds like this match had all the ingredients of a classic encounter between these two rivals.
Absolutely. But let's rewind for a moment, shall we? Let's transport ourselves to that electric atmosphere in Brussels, to the Stade Roy Baudon, where the tension was palpable.
Set the scene for me.
Imagine the roar of the crowd.
And on the other side.
Exactly.
So they were ready to pounce on any sign of French complacency.
Precisely.
Ah.
He was phenomenal.
Do you have a most memorable save of his?
One that stands out was a point-blank shot from Belgium's Jeremy Doku.
It's easy to see why he's considered one of the best in the world.
Precise.
And then,
His first goal was a thing of beauty.
a goal worthy of winning any match, let alone one with such high stakes.
His second goal was more opportunistic.
Talk about a nose for the goal.
Oh wow.
It was a clumsy challenge.
I can only imagine.
And for their manager.
Deschamps, ever the tactician, made some key substitutions, bringing on Youssouf Fofana to bolster the midfield.
So France was down a man, but they held their ground. They fought with a ferocity that surprised even their opponents.
You could see it in the way they defended, every player throwing their body on the line to preserve their lead. Maignan, once again, was incredible, making several clutch saves, including another one of those jaw-dropping stops against Doku.
That's the kind of performance that earns you the title of hero in a game like this.
Mhm.
But even with all that, it's got to be nerve-wracking, knowing you're hanging on by a thread, right?
It definitely wasn't a walk in the park. The last few minutes felt like an eternity. But it was a testament to their resilience, their ability to rise above the pressure and find a way to win, even against all odds.
That's why it's such a thrill to watch this rivalry. The tension, the drama, the incredible moments of skill and determination. It all adds up to an unforgettable experience. But beyond the final score, what are the key takeaways from this match? What does it tell us about these two teams and the future of this rivalry?
One of the biggest takeaways is that France, even when they're not at their best, still finds a way to win. They have this winning mentality, a never-say-die attitude that sees them through tough moments. That's the mark of a true champion.
And what about Belgium? What did we learn about them from this match?
For Belgium, this match showed that while they're still searching for their best form, they have the spirit and the desire to compete with the best. They're a proud footballing nation, and they'll be determined to bounce back from this setback. But they have a lot of soul-searching to do, a lot of questions to answer.
It sounds like we have the makings of a rivalry for the ages here. One that's full of drama, tension, and a constant battle for dominance.
Absolutely. France versus Belgium is a rivalry that has it all: history, passion, world-class talent, and a healthy dose of drama. I, for one, can't wait to see what the next chapter holds.
Me neither. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk a bit more about the fallout from this latest encounter. What's the mood like in both camps following the match?
Well, France, with their latest win under their belt, is buzzing with confidence. But they're not resting on their laurels. They're still hungry for more, and they'll be looking to build on their recent success.
And Belgium. They're licking their wounds, but I'm sure they're not giving up.
You're right, they're definitely not giving up, but they know they're facing a turning point. There's a sense of urgency to rediscover their winning formula, to reclaim their rightful place among the top footballing nations.
So, with France celebrating their latest win and Belgium licking their wounds, what are the next steps for these two teams? What's the immediate future hold for this dynamic rivalry?
Well, the next few weeks are going to be crucial for both nations. France will be looking to maintain their momentum and secure their place in the final stages of the League of Nations. They're playing with a swagger, and they want to continue to dominate the competition.
And Belgium. They'll be trying to find their groove again, right? To break this cycle of defeats against France.
Exactly. They'll be looking to regain their confidence and find a way to break this cycle of defeats against France. It's not going to be easy, but they have the talent and the determination to turn things around.
But what kind of changes do you think they need to make to get back on track?
That's the big question. The key for Belgium is to find the right balance between experience and youth. They've relied on their golden generation of players for years. But now, those players are starting to age, and they need to bring in fresh talent players who have the potential to carry the torch for the next generation.
It's always a delicate balancing act, isn't it? Bringing in new players while still relying on your veterans.
Absolutely. It's about finding a way to blend the experience of the older players with the youthful energy and potential of the younger generation. It's a recipe for success if they can get it right.
So what about the French team? What kind of challenges are they facing in the months ahead?
For France, the biggest challenge is staying at the top. They've set a very high bar for themselves, and the expectation is that they will continue to perform at the highest level. The pressure is immense.
The pressure's on.
Absolutely. And with the next European Championship just around the corner, they'll be aiming to build momentum and solidify their status as one of the top contenders. It's going to be a fascinating journey to watch.
It's going to be a fascinating journey to watch. So with all this talk about Belgium and France, what about the rest of the world? How does this rivalry impact the global football landscape?
This rivalry has a significant impact on the global football landscape in a few key ways. First, it highlights the strength and depth of footballing talent in Europe.
Both teams have world-class players, right?
Exactly. It's a testament to the quality of footballing development in both countries. Second, it reinforces the idea that football is more than just a sport. It's a cultural phenomenon.
What do you mean?
This rivalry is about more than just winning and losing. It's about national pride, cultural identity, and the pursuit of sporting glory.
It sounds like it touches on something deeper in both countries.
Absolutely. It reflects how these two nations view themselves in the world and their desire to leave their mark on the global football stage.
And that, in turn, influences how other nations view France and Belgium. It's like this rivalry is a window into their national character.
You could say that this rivalry is a microcosm of the larger international football landscape, a fascinating clash of cultures, and a story that continues to unfold in captivating ways.
It's amazing how a seemingly simple game of football can have such far-reaching cultural implications.
It's all about the narratives we create, the stories we tell, and the meanings we assign to these events.
And with this rivalry, the story continues.
Absolutely, and it's a story that I, for one, am eager to follow.
So what should we be watching for as the next chapter unfolds? What are some of the key storylines to keep an eye on in the coming months and years?
Well, one key storyline is how both teams respond to the latest developments. France, with their recent success, will be looking to solidify their position as a global powerhouse, while Belgium, facing a period of transition, will be looking to redefine their identity on the international stage.
It sounds like a new chapter is about to begin in the France-Belgium rivalry.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a fascinating one to follow.
I'm with you.
And who knows? Maybe this rivalry will only intensify as the two teams continue to battle it out on the world stage.
That's a thought to keep in mind.
Exactly. It's a rivalry that's full of surprises, passion, and a healthy dose of drama.
It's a rivalry that's woven into the fabric of international football, and it's certainly a story that's worth following closely.
It's a story that's going to keep us on the edge of our seats for years to come.
Speaking of keeping us on the edge of our seats, let's talk a little more about the psychology of this rivalry. What's it like to be a player or a fan caught up in the middle of this intense competition?
Imagine this, you're a young Belgian player stepping onto the pitch. And you know you're facing the eternal executioners, the team that's haunted your nation's footballing dreams for decades. That's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders.
It's almost like they're playing against ghosts of matches past, in addition to the very real and very talented French team standing in front of them. No wonder there's so much pressure.
Exactly. And that pressure can be both motivating and paralyzing. Some players rise to the occasion, channeling that nervous energy into exceptional performances. Others crumble under the weight of expectation.
And for the fans, it must be an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely. For Belgian fans, there's this mix of hope and trepidation every time they face France. The hope that this time it will be different, that they'll finally break the curse. But there's also the fear, the nagging doubt that history will repeat itself.
It's like watching a movie sequel, where you're desperately hoping for a different ending, but you're not quite sure you can handle the heartbreak if it doesn't go your way.
That's a great analogy. And then, on the French side, you have a completely different set of emotions. There's a sense of confidence, a certain swagger that comes with being the dominant force in the rivalry.
The champs.
Precisely. But there's also the pressure of maintaining that dominance, of living up to the legacy of those who came before them.
Because the moment they lose, the narrative flips, right?
Right.
Suddenly, they're not the invincible force anymore.
Exactly. And that can be a heavy burden to bear. So even though they might not show it outwardly, you can bet that French players and fans feel the pressure too. It's just a different kind of pressure.
It's fascinating how a single football match can become a crucible for so many different emotions, anxieties, and aspirations. It's more than just a game. It's a reflection of national identity, a story that's been told and retold over generations.
And like any good story, it's full of heroes and villains, triumphs and heartbreaks, and an ending that's never truly written.
It makes you wonder if we could step back and view this rivalry from a completely objective perspective, stripped of all the emotional baggage. What would we see? Would we simply see two groups of highly skilled athletes competing at the highest level?
Perhaps. Or maybe, even with a purely objective lens, we'd still recognize that there's something special, something unique about this particular matchup. A certain energy, a spark that elevates it beyond the realm of ordinary competition.
It's like those classic boxing rivalries, Ali versus Frazier, Hegler versus Hearns, where the tension, the history, the sheer willpower on display transcends the sport itself.
Exactly. It becomes a battle of wills, a clash of styles, a spectacle that captures the imagination of the entire world.
And at the heart of it all is that primal human desire for victory, for dominance, for the right to claim bragging rights, if only for a little while.
And that, my friend, is the beauty of a truly great rivalry. It reminds us that even in a world that often feels predictable and mundane, there's still room for passion, for drama, for moments of unexpected brilliance and heartbreaking defeat.
It's a reminder that sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination, and that even in defeat, there are valuable lessons to be learned and stories to be told.
Beautifully said.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into the France-Belgium rivalry,
Agreed. It's been a fascinating conversation.
as always. But before we go, I have one final thought to leave our listeners with. We've spent a lot of time today dissecting the past and analyzing the present. But I'm curious, what does the future hold for this rivalry?
It's a question worth pondering.
Will France continue their reign of dominance? Or will Belgium find a way to turn the tide? Will we see new heroes emerge? New narratives take shape? These are the questions that will keep us glued to our screens for years to come.
Because one thing's for sure, the story of France versus Belgium is far from over.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities. This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.